You are the expert. No one is going to know this product in this environment better than you do. So just take a deep breath, let it all go, and go help people.
Welcome to Live Chat with Jen Weaver. Today we talk with Alison Groves at one of my favorite companies, Help Scout. Now, if you've been in support for a while, you probably know Help Scout as the incredible person-centered help desk that it is. And you may not know Alison, who is behind their amazing customer classes. Alison is customer education lead at Help Scout, where she runs live classes for customers to learn how to use their product. With 10 plus years of experience across support, success, and onboarding at companies like Zapier and Highrise, in this episode, she's going to break down her entire system behind Help Scout's wildly successful one-to-many education program. And remember, this podcast is sponsored by SupportMan, which connects Intercom to Slack and uses AI to give agents feedback and surface problems in real time. Let's get going.
I am Alison Groves. I'm the customer education lead at Help Scout. I've been at Help Scout for over 6 years now, but have been doing this kind of work for 10 plus years, so a long time.
And so has customer education lead been your role for those whole 10 years, or did you start as a customer success, or a customer support specialist or something like that?
Yeah, I started just in support at a very small company. I actually took support over from the CPO. And because Help Scout's actually the largest company I've ever worked at, so because of that, I've picked up a lot of these things that I do now just out of necessity, and there was no one else around to do them. So I think that's the story for a lot of people in our space.
Yeah, for sure. Picking up just kind of what needs to be done, especially for people who are good at many things. Yeah, so you picked up, one of the things you picked up is demos, one-to-many demos. And that's what we're going to teach people today. What started that? How did that end up being one of those things that needed to be done?
Yeah, I went from that first sort of support person to the company's only extrovert or person that could actually talk to people. And this has kind of been my role. And my mom would say since birth, but it just kind of born out of necessity. I was doing email support, but we didn't have the company was maybe less than 10 people. So we didn't have a sales team either. So it was basically my boss would do, bigger demos or those for his friends in the industry or whatnot. And I was kind of doing the rest of them. And there was one point where I did 8 one-to-one demos in one day. And I said, this is not sustainable or scalable in any way, shape, or form. Even at a company that small and our customer size was really small, that one-to-one interaction just the rate at which it becomes unscalable happens much faster than I think people would imagine.
Right.
This was my very first
Help Scout
tech job. No, 4 or 5 before Help Scout. And again, it was just out of necessity, being, very small team. This company, my first company I did this with, I was the support team. So, and I know that a lot of us have been there as well.
Yeah, well, how would you manage 10 demos in a day and still answer your support inbox? That seems outsized.
I didn't know the word no in my tools. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like it came from, you started doing this in a place that was not working, and by necessity, you then had to take these one-to-one demos and do maybe one of them in a day for 10 people instead of 10 of them for one each.
Exactly. And I really wish, I've been reflecting on this a ton. I wish I knew now what I didn't know back then, because there's so much
Teach us.
that I would have done differently. But yeah, I turned those sort of one-to-ones into, one to whoever. At the time, this company was so small, we moved into a bigger office space, and the CEO built me a recording studio, essentially. Even got one of those on-air signs that would turn on and off. And I would just go into my little whole windowless room and kind of crank these things out. And that's where this all started for me. So this would have been 10, 12 years ago. And I think, combining all of them that I've done across all the companies I worked at, I bet I've done more than 1,000 one-to-many
That's a lot.
classes. Yeah, it's a lot.
But that's great because we can learn from you. Like you said, those things that you wish you had known. So if you can, I know you've worked up some steps for us to do this ourselves. If you can walk us through those.
I'm just going to make an assumption that we are talking to a primarily support-based audience here.
Absolutely.
So in theory, you're already kind of doing the work, right? Like, if you're answering emails or creating knowledge-based articles, which is kind of like the crux of what we all do, you're already like starting that work. And I will say that, learn from every interaction that you have with the customer. And those learnings start to pile up in your head, right? And then all of a sudden, you're the arbiter of knowledge. And that knowledge is, these are the areas where a large amount of people get stuck. And that is the spot where you can really start to lean into that sort of one-to-many class type of thinking and structure and implementation and things like that.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is if I'm in the queue and I'm answering emails or chat, and then I could just sit down with like a notebook and say, what are the top 5 like sticking points that my customers have? And right there, I've got my curriculum for a one-to-many course.
Totally. I mean, your data will tell you that. I am not to my bosses and everyone else's chagrin, not a data-driven person. I am a talk to 1,000 people and then it's just like your gut instinct type of person, which is, I don't recommend, but it's still there, right? Like the longer you do this, the more you can trust your gut and lean on your gut, and that knowledge is there. Now that data that you should also be looking at can back that up. But yeah, you can look at whatever tooling you're using, look at the last 6 months worth of data and very easily identify like, these are the problems that people are having. And I'm not even talking about like trial customers or whatever that might look like for your business. I mean, customers that have been with us for years. A couple months ago, a teammate of mine brought this to my attention. They were like, someone watched one of your YouTube videos and they were like, they've been customers for 5 years and didn't know about this one really sort of cornerstone part of the product that we just assume everyone knows about. And so it's that sort of mentality, right? The data and your gut and everything, like it all kind of comes together to say, well, no matter where this person is in their life cycle with you, there's always room to learn more. And then you just start repeating yourself.
Yeah, well, and would you say too, if someone is hesitant to get started, they could go with their gut or go with data or like one point of information and start. And then you can pull in, oh, by the way, this customer didn't know this particular thing. Let's add this one-to-many thing on.
Yep.
And just to like get a foundation too, I'm sorry, like when you say one-to-many, are we talking about like webinars or courses or like what's been your most successful thing to do?
Yeah, we do them. Technically, you could call them a webinar. I don't like using that word. We use the word class instead because it feels a little bit more warm and interactive. And like, we're not here to sell you anything or whatever nasty connotations the word webinar might have in your head. We're here to just help you learn.
Okay, cool. You've decided to teach a class, and what's your next step? You've got your course, you've got your plan.
Yeah. So this is where you get to kind of stretch your cross-functional mindset and working, and is something that I am a staunch advocate for, because one of the best ways that you can grow your own career is learning how to work cross-functionally, right? So you have this idea, you're like, I'm going to go teach this 20-minute class about this specific thing. Well, unfortunately, you can't just go do that, right? Like, you have to start with most likely your marketing team or your web team or whoever that is, and go to them and say, hey, I need to build out a landing page for this particular class that I want to host. Can you help me do that? You do need to kind of have those relationships with those people on other teams to help you pull this off, because unfortunately for a lot of people, certain areas are gate kept by other departments, things like emails and things like that you need to communicate these types of things, so you just have to work with those other folks.
Right, and it sounds like you're building a bit of a foundation to save yourself time later. Like if you are going to have a form that people sign up you kind of want it to automate them through their sign up process for the course. They can put it on their calendar. You can have a class roster and know what you're walking into if you have the right tooling and if you've set that up with your web team or your marketing team.
Yeah. And I'm happy to talk through how like our exact sort of
that would be amazing.
How that line works. And please feel free to steal everything I'm about to tell you, because I genuinely believe we are all in this together. We all learn from each other. We all support each other. Let's all share and learn together. But this is so funny that we're having this conversation today, because I was just having to update this process with our RevOps team just yesterday. So it's another team you have to kind of have interactions with. But essentially the way that we do it, and everyone might look a little different because of the various tooling that you already have in place.
You probably want to use what teams are already using.
Right. So for us, we use HubSpot to run all of our marketing arms. So our CRM, all of our outbound marketing emails, everything runs through HubSpot. So what we did is we built a form in HubSpot that is connected to Zoom. So we use Zoom as our class platform. I've looked at using others in the past, and I've always come back to Zoom because it's so ubiquitous now across any sort of person. Like our parents,
so people won't have to learn something new.
Right. Yeah. Our parents can use Zoom, and once your mom can do something, like, you just kind of stick with it, right? So there's no extra learning curve. I just want that person to be able to focus on what we're going to talk through together and not anything else.
Yeah, so your priority is whatever you have to do on your end, the customer just signs up, clicks a button, and it just works.
Yep. Yeah. So all they have to do is, we have a landing page that has all of our upcoming classes on it that, again, our marketing team built. It's powered by a HubSpot form, so they click on the date and time that works for them. And in fact, our website CMS displays the class time in the person's proper time zone.
Oh, I love it when that happens.
Does an IP lookup and all that. And all the customer has to do is enter their name and their email address. And then once they hit submit, those wires are tied together behind the scenes from the HubSpot form submission over to Zoom. And then, which all happens in the background of Contentful, which is our CMS. And I will say, I wrote a very long blog post about this that has all of this sort of lined out. So if at any point anyone wants to reference it, because there's a lot of moving parts.
We'll make sure that's linked in the show notes.
Yeah. But essentially, at its highest level, it's just like, use the tooling that you kind of already have, work with your marketing team and your web team, and just kind of get that flow going. So it's, landing page to form to Zoom. And then Zoom actually handles all of the outbound email to that customer. So the sign up confirmation email, there's like a 1 hour reminder email and a follow-up email that Zoom handles as well. So once you kind of get those real sort of core basic pieces together, that leaves you alone to just do the teaching, and that tooling kind of handles everything there for you.
That's fantastic. So we're talking about HubSpot, and then your CMS, and then you're using Zoom to actually deliver the webinar.
Yeah.
So you've got these people signing up with their email addresses. You may not necessarily know whether they are the end user for one of your customers or whether they're a lead, because people probably don't always use their work emails.
Right. That was the problem I was working through with our RevOps team literally just yesterday.
I can always just needle in and find a problem.
In the past, I have not cared who signs up and attends class. To me, and even though we do have years and years worth of conversion data, and the class converts at close to 60%. So it's
amazing.
It's our second biggest conversion lever that we have. But it's multi-purpose, right? So it's not just people who are new to the product or maybe in trial or something like that. We also use it as a learning mechanism for new users who get added to existing accounts, or anyone who wants to just like come brush up on their Help Scout skills.
Like you said about the customers who don't necessarily know about all the features.
Right. So in the past, I haven't really cared about who was signing up because it's the right thing to do. We're going to do right by everyone by offering this learning resource. But recently there's kind of been like, even for my own personal career growth, let's actually just take one tiny little bit extra step here and see if we can break down exactly who is coming to the sessions. So we are adding that as a self-select in the form.
Okay.
Because there's just no, like you said, there's no way to truly like make that connection. They could use a different email address. So the sign up form used to be just name and email, and now it's gonna be name, email, and there's a drop down with 3 options. You're either just here to look around, you have a trial account, or you're already a customer. And we're gonna have them self-select and then sort of use that as our sort of guiding light to see really truly deeper who exactly like is coming and what we can, tweak and change little bits and pieces to make that better for the majority that are coming.
So do you think you'll look ahead before you hop into teaching a class and just get a sense of everyone is new or everyone is an existing user who just may have questions, and kind of think about that as you're leading it? Or are you using that more for reporting?
It's more for reporting. I know that it's a pretty 50-50 mix of...
Again, that gut feeling that you've been doing it.
I tried to lead 2 separate classes. So one for pre-trial and trial customers and one for new users who just got added to existing accounts. And what I discovered is that no matter what copy you have on the website, people only care about signing up for the day and time that works best for them.
Right.
So it didn't matter how I was tailoring the class. People just saw March 6th at noon. That's the time that I'm available, and weren't reading the copy to make sure it was the right thing for them. So that's a really difficult thing to overcome.
That's an important lesson, but it kind of frees you to just do one class.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It removes a lot of the complexity.
Yes. So we do those. And then we also do from time to time, specific classes for either a new, product release. I did a bunch in the last couple of months regarding the updates that we made to our UI. So there are those other opportunities for people to sort of self-select and come learn. But for that main sort of demo, the thing that we've done for longer than I took it over from someone when I joined the company. So for longer than I've been around, that's pretty much stayed the same for this many years.
So regarding tooling and how you've been doing it all these years, would you say the primary way people find the class is through the website, or is your marketing team blasting these on a schedule before they happen?
Because there's such a giant conversion mechanism for us, we kind of paper the internet with it, essentially. It's in our onboarding sequences. It is a part of a lot of saved replies that we use when we're talking to...
Whoa, right. So your support team.
Yes.
Somebody writes in and has a problem or whatever, and your support team is going to send them a snippet, and in it is, oh, by the way, take this class.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep. So yeah, we just kind of work it in as many different places as we can because we know it's so helpful and we want everyone to come. When you're added as a new user on an existing account, you get an email that has that information in there. So all those little tiny places, which again, we didn't do for the first few years. And so that's just that iterative process of something comes along, and you're like, this would also be helpful there. So you just sort of, add it in those spots.
So if I'm looking at starting this the first time, these are things to keep in mind for the future, but I can just start and I don't have to have this fully developed ecosystem of the class.
Correct.
Yet.
I mean, technically, and I've seen other companies do this, Zoom will actually provide you a landing page for your session. So you can build something out just with Zoom, which will also handle the emails for you completely on your own without having to rely on anyone else. So that's how you can sort of MVP that out. Like if you were my boss and you came to me and you're like, Alison, we just really need to think about scale. If we go back to say my earliest years, these one-on-one demo, it's just not working anymore. You got to scale it up. But then within a couple of hours, you could actually have the whole thing set up just through Zoom. And it doesn't have to be perfect. there are plenty of ways where you can just start. And it won't be pretty and it won't be polished, but customers don't care about that. They just need the help.
Yeah. And if you did that just using Zoom, is there a way to, through Zoom, get an export of the people who attended so you can just save that data for when you do scale?
Yep. And you can get that at any moment. I went back to get 18 months worth of classes data just last week because leadership was asking about it, and Zoom has it all. Yeah, they have your registration data, your attendee data. They'll store every question that was ever asked in your Q&A, any surveys or polls that you do. All of that data is stored in your Zoom account for as long as it's active. So again, you could just use them for however long you needed to before your company grew enough around you to like polish it up a little bit more. And never have to worry about that data because it's there.
And you could go back and use that to then prove the value of your course. And like you have shown the conversion, 60% conversion rate, you could just start your courses and then next year go back and go, these are all the people who attended. Let's see who converted. And look, it's going great. I need to staff this even further because it's a good thing.
And that, I do it a little more sophisticated than that, but that's essentially what you do. In fact, I don't do it. Our RevOps team does it for me, so I cannot take any credit for this. But if I didn't have them, that is exactly what I would do. I would export all of that data and just run it against my own database. And then, you average that column up and that'll tell you what your conversion rate is.
Yeah. So then you could say to leadership, hey, this is a huge revenue driver and it's really helping in these areas. And if there's really a need for it and it's growing very quickly, you're probably going to need to bring in other people to teach also.
Yes. Yeah. I did it alone everywhere until just about 18 months ago because I was going away for a month and someone else just had to do it. And so we looked at my sabbatical as that sort of moment where we had to very quickly make a decision and grow the program. And for us, it was just putting it out on the support team, like who was looking for their own growth opportunities.
And then it must have been a big sea change to take people who have never done it before from the support team and train them up in preparation for your sabbatical.
Yeah, it was, we really debated how to handle it internally. We spent a lot of time trying to think like, do we just have everyone, get on board? Do we let people self-select? Like, how do we handle that? At the end of the day, we decided to let people self-select. And since everything was already done, the script was written, the Zoom thing already existed. So I would just say, hey, here's the script. Here's how to set it up in Zoom. Do a trial run, record yourself, send that to me. I'll give you feedback and we'll do that until you feel comfortable. And that's kind of how we scaled it. So it went from 1 to 3 or to 4, if you still count me, very quickly because of that. Because the groundwork had already been done, we were able to I probably got that scaled up in like 2 weeks.
And the scripting you had done before you were trying to teach someone else to do it.
Yeah, in fact, I inherited the script at Help Scout from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I pared it down and I just kept paring it down until it got to the point where it is today. Not the only thing that's changed in the last 4 years is, product updates that we have to kind of work in, but the structure hasn't changed. And because we have these very sort of almost strict rails that we have put ourselves on, like it's so methodical at this point, I think that's how my 3 teammates were able to just kind of like walk into it because it was already an existing organism that was very well oiled. I think and I was actually just giving this pep talk to another teammate of mine this week because she had to do an in-person demo somewhere. And I tell this to everyone. I'm like, you are the expert. No one is going to know this product in this environment better than you do. So just take a deep breath, let it all go, and go help people.
Was there some hesitation on their part to move from a situation where I'm taking in emails or chats and nobody sees me, I can pass it off to somebody else, I can just push hold, and now I'm moving to a situation where if someone asks a question, I have to answer, or something right now.
That is a real concern, is people feel like they're going to be sort of in the moment and caught out, so to speak. And I really drive it home with folks that you don't have to know the answer to everything. And in fact, the person that asks you that question is going to respect you even more if you say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question. Let me go research that and get back to you as soon as I am able, than for you to just BS your way through something that's wrong or partially wrong. Then they're automatically off on a bad foot with you. So yes, I'm very adamant that like, if you don't know the answer, you tell someone that. And that has never failed me in 10 plus years.
Yeah, no one has ever written in and said, this instructor had to check on the answer and get back to me later, and it was bad.
Right. And it happens more than you would think, especially in our software world, where every customer is on some different form of a plan, and every plan type has slightly different rules than the other. So a lot of times people will ask really specific questions to their account, and we just don't answer them. We just tell them we're going to get back to them later. And you know, I think if we wanted to help people with this, that would be some of the more important information I would want to impart, is like, you can just let it go, and you don't have to answer everything that happens. You can take a step back. You can get back to that customer later in the day via email. It's all totally acceptable. Like, the harder you try to force that live environment, the worse it's going to get for you.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing an undercurrent of focus. We want the customer to focus on the screen and the tool, and we want the speaker, the teacher, to focus on the script and getting through that. And then other things, just kind of other questions, other content gets put off and answered later.
Yeah, we don't do Q&A until the very end, because nothing will kill your flow faster than that. And the second that you sort of veer off course, which is why we have again, I've tried to do a handful of them unscripted just as a challenge to myself, and it never ends well.
Is it too easy to get off track?
It's really easy to get off track, because you'll get, maybe it's just me, but you'll get excited about getting into one portion, and then you just kind of like float off into the ether talking about this thing. And then the next thing you know, your brain panics because you're off track and you can never get back. And that happens if you do, I think anyway, just my opinion, if you do Q&A anywhere in the middle of what you're trying to teach, that's the same thing as like kind of wandering off into the forest. And like finding your way back to the main trail becomes more and more difficult. And a lot of the time, the question that you're going to answer is probably only applicable to one human. And the second you lose the room, like, you're not getting them back. So if you keep everyone, including yourself, focused all the way through, then at the end, you can hang out for as long as you want and ask questions, and people can self-select in and out at that point. But by then, you've already taught them everything that they need to learn. So.
I just wanted to quickly go through the steps we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Identifying what needs to be taught, and then finding your tooling and doing that, just Zoom, or if you want to make it more mature from the beginning, going through with your marketing team and all of that, then staffing it. I think what I'm hearing you say about staffing is, it can be just you from the beginning, but be prepared to scale and know where you're going to pull additional teachers from.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it from a very selfish perspective, like, eventually at some point during a year, you're going to have to take a break, whether you go on vacation, your kid's out sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need somebody, a partner or a support team member who can do that.
Yeah.
So you've staffed it, and then step 4, scripting it and making sure that, even if you adjust that script, making sure that it's paced correctly, maybe practicing it. Yep. So you know how long it takes for you to read this while you're clicking through.
Yep.
And then working with your team to build out a landing page, but also however marketing or customer success wants those metrics. And like you said, putting it into your support help desk so the support team can also know what's going on with customers. And then I don't think we touched on this yet. We have 8 steps. This is step 6, practice sessions. So once you have your script, I guess that's the heart of making sure the timing is right.
Yep. And I will, because I just had to create, and I'm about to create another new class because we have some app updates coming up. I will time it on my watch, and I'll just start the timer and read through the script and see how long it is. Anything over a half hour, you really want want to cut down. But yeah, those practice sessions are really helpful for that, just to make sure that you're hitting everything you need to hit. Especially, I learned with your script and your practice, you can make sure that things flow in the right way, because you might not be telling the story properly, And there are many times where I'll be like midway through, if I've created something new midway through, and be like, this doesn't flow well. This needs to go before this. So those practice sessions really help you with that storytelling as well.
And if you're doing a practice session to work on flow, you're reading it aloud, but do you also click through the tool as you would be, so that that's where you find out about flow problems?
Yeah. In fact, I joke with our design team, like our product design team, and I'm like, y'all should write things out before designing them, because if you can't tell the story well, if you have to go up and then down and then back up again, like that's not fun. So there's a lot of applications of that,
Yeah, you're working through the product and kind of minimizing clicks and changes of screen. And so then if you're prepared, you've worked with the other teams, and now you're going to ship it. Do you have advice on how to schedule the times? With people all over the world, potentially, and time zones can be an issue. What are your learnings there?
And it's going to vary for everyone. We're not only a global company in team, but we're also a global company in customer. So I make sure we do 3 classes a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every time at a different time, to cover as many time zones as possible. So we do one later in the afternoon to try to get APAC, which is really, really tough. But it is literally noon Eastern, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 11 a.m. Eastern. And those 3 times will generally get most of the globe covered.
That's great. That's really helpful information. So like you said about data, how do you measure your success?
That is something that we are still to this day asking a question of. I have that conversion data, which I still feel really proud of and feel is a very strong indicator of how successful we are being. One data point that is not traditional in any way, and it's very anecdotal, but the vast majority of people who attend stay the entire time. Like, we don't ever see drop off. And that to me is my sort of number one indicator of how successful we are, because it's a 30-minute class, almost to the second, and people stay the entire time. And they would not be doing that if we weren't helping, if they did not find the content helpful. So it's a very non-traditional sort of data point, but to me, I think is one of the most important.
It's not revenue based, but it gives you a lot of information about how compelling your script and your delivery are.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if that started to change, I think that is when I would start like truly looking at more comprehensive changes that we might need to make. If we're teaching a half-hour class and everyone's dropping off at minute 15 or 18 or 20, that tells me we need to make some adjustments here. But everyone's staying, and most of the time someone will leave a comment in the Q&A that says something like, "Thank you so much, this was incredibly helpful." And like, as long as we hear that, I don't care about anything else.
Yeah, that's the feedback that's most important, that the customer found it helpful.
Yeah. And even if only 2 or 3 people are there, that's still better than doing it one-to-one. And you're still giving that customer that experience that you want them to feel like they mean something, that you want to help them. And that's why I think this is the best thing for a support team to do and to manage, because who cares about that more at a company than the support team?
Yeah, and you record these and put them on YouTube. Is that what you said earlier?
We don't record everyone because we do the same session every day, essentially. Every few months I'll go in, well, we do have a recorded version, and every few months I'll go and refresh it just a little bit. And, because UI changes every 30 seconds or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
But we have that resource on classes page, so where someone signs up. We also have that resource on YouTube, because people are using YouTube as a search engine now, and any place where we can, add that content, we can. I am really close with our growth PM, so I work with her, and like as they're making updates to the product on the onboarding side of things, like I'll get some class content in there. All those, any little place where you can put your fingers, like you want to get your stuff in those spots.
Yeah, that brings up an interesting question for me too. With the PM and with being tied into feature releases, are you doing anything special to make sure that you, in your class on a Tuesday, you know what features are available to that customer. So they're not on a beta, so you don't have beta features showing up on your screen, but you're up to date with what they are seeing.
That one is, over the last 6-9 months, has proved to be really difficult because we're not this way today, but there was about a 6-month window when trial customers and current customers were seeing 2 versions of the product.
Oh, good Lord.
And we just went with what trial customers were seeing because a current customer who just wants to come learn a little bit more, they can grok what's happening. But someone who's never seen the product before, like, they need to have the experience that they're going to have in trial. It was really difficult, but that was the call that I made. I was like,
that's an elegant solution because those existing customers have more product knowledge and they are more able to adapt their thinking.
Even if it's just a couple of hours worth of product knowledge, they still have it, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas someone brand new or maybe is just curious and wants a demo, when they do start using the product, like that's what they see. It was a really tough call to make, but I stand by that. And so that's how I would handle that, is like, what are your most vulnerable is the word that popped into my head, but like, what are your most vulnerable, learners going to need to know, and like stick with that path because everyone else can sort of figure it out.
Brilliant. I love that. Yeah, I know we are kind of at time. I'm so grateful for your transparency and your willingness to just like probably you are with customers, to bring along other support people to do this same thing. It's just wonderful.
I mean, that's what we should all be doing, that of each other. And that's why I have the attitude that I do. And if anyone wants to try this or talk through it or bounce ideas off of it, please email me. I'm sure we'll figure out how to share that information, and I'd be glad to consult, for better lack of a word, and help, because I feel so strongly about this, and I'm also in a really unique position and want to, help others get there.
That really encompasses my experience of Help Scout as a company. Incredibly helpful.
Yeah, our main company value is happy to help. And every year at retreat, we give out a happy to help award. And I won it last year, and it was a custom pair of Converse sneakers. So that was really fun.
That's awesome. Were they Help Scout branded?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Help Scout on them. Because they're the only one in existence.
Oh, so that's not the award for every year. That was specific to yours.
Yeah, we have 4 company values, so there were four completely unique custom pairs of shoes that were given out. But happy to help is like our number 1 company value, and I try to exude that as much as I can. But I think that us as support people are the same in that way,
That's a wrap. That if you like this podcast's focus on tactical processes, and if you use Intercom, check out supportman.io for instant AI quality review in Slack. All right, so Alison walked us through 8 steps. Step 1, identify what specifically needs to be taught. Now, you probably know this from your gut, but you can also look at data. Step 2, find the tooling that works best for you. You'll need that before you can set up a sign-up page and get people going. Step 3, staff it. It could be just you to start, but you will eventually need to find a backup and maybe a whole team. Step 4, script it. Alison has done over 1,000 live walkthroughs, and she's never done one without a script. It allows you to make sure you're telling the right narrative and leaves space for constant iteration. Step 5, work with your web team to build out a landing page. Step 6, do some practice sessions. Step 7, ship it. Even if it's not perfect, schedule a few days and times, ask your marketing team to add it to outgoing emails, and get going. Step 8, the final step, measure it. What's your main success metric? What's going well? What do you need to change? Report up to leadership regularly on the performance. We'll see you next time on Live Chat with Jen Weaver.